fade in. After surviving a devastating plague, being confined to their homes, and being forced to live off meager rations, residents of a magical kingdom desperately needed someone to restore their hope. Just when all seemed lost, a figure appears on the horizon. As that figure came closer, they saw a familiar face. A heroic knight who once led these citizens has returned. The townsfolk cheer and smile until they realize that knight has drawn his own sword and has begun hacking at the townspeople he once protected. Is that the opening scene from a new movie? Just Bob Iger doing his thing over at Disney. Hey folks, Mark here with The Rational Workforce. Thanks so much for coming by. We really appreciate you tuning into the channel. Today we're going to talk about Disney, another company that has been in the news seemingly nonstop for the past couple of years. As most of you know, the former CEO exited. The prior CEO, Bob Iger, came back in. He was heralded as something of a white knight who is going to return the kingdom back to its former glory. And I think you'd be hard-pressed to say that he's doing his job there. If you look at the box office in particular, most of their properties have been underperforming, at least against what their historic standard was, right? So we're talking iconic brands, Star Wars, Marvel, Pixar. They're not really pulling the weight that they used to. And the Disney parks, which has historically been their cash cow, we're now seeing reports that crowd levels are really just dwindling down. And whether you think it's the heat or maybe something else, even the Disney blogger community seems to be a little bit dejected these days. So in the department of kind of restoring faith amongst the employees or amongst the cast members, and certainly about restoring faith or trust of the consumers, Disney's having a little bit of an uphill battle. And then this recent news broke. So let's jump into it. So Bob Iger moves to calm Disney staff after sparking high anxiety over potential sale of TV assets. So in a nutshell, Bob Iger went on a cable news business show. And during that show, he made some pretty candid remarks where he said that Disney's linear business, which is how they refer to the television assets, may not be core to the entertainment giant. And of course, that sent shockwaves not only throughout the industry, but throughout the employee base. So again, some of the juggernaut brands that we're talking about here, ABC, Disney Channel, National Geographic, FX, these are really, really big brands, right? So the challenge is that he has effectively left the staff in the dark by not communicating directly with them since the interview. There have been no company-wide memos, no town hall meetings, nothing but silence since Iger jolted the organization with that news. Now, the chief executive on Tuesday sought to quell some of this unease as he fielded questions submitted by senior company leaders assembled at a staff offsite. And he told the personnel gathered that the content created by the company's television division is incredibly valuable to our business. And then when he spoke specifically of ABC News, I'm ridiculously passionate about news. It's important to the company. And then yada, yada, yada. So look, I've led large teams. I've led teams through times of layoffs. And look, they're inevitable in business. Sometimes you just need to make some cuts. But the way that you do that and try to keep everybody still engaged and plugged into the work, what Iger just did is precisely the exact opposite. So who knows what the motives are. And look, anytime a company is making some changes or making cuts, there's no way it's not going to impact the workforce, right? Because your super high potential employees, your go-getters, your climbers, see what's going on and they start to wonder, maybe this place is in decline. Maybe it's not as great as I thought it was going to be. And the great people on your team, the phones are always ringing, right? There's always recruiters out there looking for talent. You've got other people who have families and mouths to feed, mortgages to pay, and tuitions that start getting antsy and they start looking too. And when everyone is distracted, it's really hard to do a good job and stay focused, right? So this is creating a little bit of chaos within the business. And the CEO can come out and say all day long how incredible he thinks your work is and how wonderful the team is. But anyone who's been through a layoff, anyone who's worked with a company of any size, knows that that is very, very small comfort. And if you take a look at kind of what's been going on historically, here's a quick walkthrough of the timeline of what's been adding to this drumbeat of negativity. So this was a story from April 24th, where they were talking about there was essentially 7,000 employees that Iger announced was going to get laid off, and they had to realize $5.5 billion in cost savings. So the company needed some help. So this was announced back in April. It was about to start those layoffs kind of the following Monday with 4,000. And then you can see the news just week after week, month after month. This was from April 26th, talking about all the different divisions the layoffs hit, including the television division. Here it is on May 25th, talking about the layoffs that it's beginning outside of the United States, so to some of their global partners. Here's a story from May 31st, saying that Disney completed its third and its final round of layoffs. But then here we have June 3rd, where there are more layoffs, this time from Pixar, announced. And then more recently, June 30th, they announced the names of some pretty big deal on-air personalities at ESPN, who was just laid off too. So we go back to the whole process of having to do some of these necessary business steps, but in a way that maintains confidence in the rest of the workforce. This ain't how it's done. This ain't how it's done. You have your town hall meetings. You have your discussions. You have a much more open and transparent way of communicating with your teams and with your people. Or at the very least, you have your managers and leadership in and give them guidance on how they can support their people. It seems like none of this happened. And, I think it's necessary for Disney to have a pretty big shakeup, because in my opinion, they've lost their way. And let me give you some context. So I have been a Disney crazy fan since day one. My wife and I honeymooned there. That was 26 plus years ago. We've been back pretty much every couple of years ever since with each of our children. We have family in Florida. We go down all the time. We celebrated our 25th anniversary at Disney World. We're a member of the D23 fan club. If you look at my Walt Disney Points credit card, it says day one member. So I joined as soon as they rolled that out. And I'm also a modest shareholder, but a shareholder nonetheless. So, I have always been a fan of Disney. I have not been a fan of Disney the past couple of years. I think they're doing a lot of things that are not only damaging their brand for employees, for consumers, but I also think their employees are feeling it too. Our last couple of visits to Walt Disney World, that historically it's expensive, but we've justified it by saying the experience there, the customer experience there, is always so over and above what you would expect anywhere else, that it's worth it. Because I know if I'm going to work my ass off and take a week off during the course of the year, if I go to Disney World, I can trust that week is going to be incredible. I'm going to have my ass kicked. I'm going to have kicked. Cut. I'm going to have my ass kissed. I'm going to have great food, and I'm going to have tremendous service, and everyone's going to have a great time. Past couple times I've bumped into some kind of rude cast members. It seems like some of their attention to detail has fallen off. The business needs help. So there's no doubt that sometimes you need to do restructuring to make that happen. But by God, do the right thing by your people. And, I feel like this is just another in a latest example of executives who make decisions that create consequences, and they don't pay the price, but the employees pay the price. So, at a time when you've got entertainment folks that are striking left and right, at a time when you've got cast members in the parks who, really should be making more money than they're making, particularly given what the parks was bringing in, it's a recipe for bad branding that I think is going to take a while to shake off. And it's going to take some decisive positive moves that will convince people that Disney's back on the right track, including folks like me who, have spent pretty much their whole life following them and is now, meh. Universal's getting a lot more of our money, both at the box office and when we travel. So I don't think I'm alone in that one. But I'd love to hear what you think. What do you think about what's going on at Disney? Do you personally have layoff horror stories that you'd like to share? Throw them in the comments. We get enough of them. Maybe we'll do an episode just covering that. But regardless, I thank you so much for stopping by. Please ring the bell, hit subscribe, do all the things, help the channel grow. We really appreciate your support, and we will catch you on the next one. Thanks so much, folks. Bye-bye.